When it comes to building a deck in Commander, there are many archetypes to choose from. You can build your deck to be like a control deck, play it like an aggro deck, build it to deny resources and lands by making it stacks, or doing something crazy like making it tribal. Today we're going to look at a commander who wants to lend himself to group hug, but we're going to build him like control. This is Zedruu the Greathearted. Zedruu the Greathearted is an unthreatening 2-power, 4-toughness creature that costs 1 colorless, 1 red, 1 white, and 1 blue. Although her colors don't lend themselves to be necessarily aggressive, she has 2 relevant abilities. Her first being, at the beginning of your upkeep, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of permanents you own that your opponents control. All Magic decks want to gain life, and draw cards. What makes this deck different is that we have to balance this ability with what we give to our opponents. Zedruu's second ability basically feeds the first. For 1 red, 1 white, and 1 blue, target opponent gains control of target permanent you control. If I had to place it somewhere on the archetype scale, this deck would fall kind of into control, combo, maybe a bit of group, no, Voltron, no, you know what, pretty much it's everything. This deck is what I consider to be probably one of the most versatile and responsive decks which I've ever played since I started playing EDH a few years ago. It can be very competitive, which is ironic since it's being headed by a commander that is primarily concerned with giving stuff away. All EDH decks want to start off by building up their resources, but one of the primary resources for this deck is alliances, politics, and debts. One of the best ways to achieve these is through repetitive and consistent effects, i.e. planeswalkers and enchantments. Did your buddy blow his hand early on and is now stalled waiting for draws? Cast Temple Bell or Jace Beleren, he'll thank you later. Is your buddy on the right starved for mana? Give him land with the promise that he won't attack you for a while, or even better, drop an early Oath of the Lieges, and now everybody hits those land drops. Early game for this deck is really basically making friends. You want everyone to think that if they keep you alive, they have a better chance at winning. As the game progresses, so about mid-game, this is when you want to start to reveal your plan. Like I said before, we're playing an adaptable, versatile deck. People will eventually start to realize that although they're getting those extra lands and cards, you're drawing 3 or 4 extra cards in your upkeep, as well as gaining life. Those friendships are going to quickly become rivalries, so you need to make sure you're well protected. To this end, propaganda effects are great. They punish early greedy decks, and coupled with a card like Light Minefield, can be very, very punishing to token-based decks. If you're feeling particularly aggressive, and aren't as worried about drawing the entire table's worth of hate on yourself, then playing a card like Humility is right up your alley. But you should be warned. Humility should only be used when you're in a strong position, as it shuts off Zedruu's donate and draw functions, which are tantamount to our winning strategy. Now, I've seen a lot of lists run various ways to donate permanents, a lot of them are spell-based, and although they can seem neat in theory, these are most often just dead cards in your hand. Usually when you draw them, Zedruu isn't even out, and the cards that you're giving away are probably things that you want to keep anyway. It's not worth running them, as most of the time, when you do have it, Zedruu is often enough to be able to give away your permanents. The only 2 cards that I would even consider are Goblin Trader or Puka's Mischief. Mostly because they have dual functions, in which Goblin Trader can be used as a blocker and Puka's Mischief increases our enchantment count. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about game-winning combos and win conditions. One of the strongest win conditions in this deck is the Mind Over Matter and Temple Bell / Otherworldly Atlas combo. This combo forces your opponents to draw their entire deck and then lose when they are unable to draw their next turn. It's a good way to end a long game, but is by far the least satisfying way in this deck. You can also do some kind of Zedruu Voltron, where my deck runs Eldrazi Conscription, which I slam onto Zedruu, making him a 12/14 Annihilator beast creature that just smashes for face. One of the most convoluted, and what I think is probably the funnest ways of winning, involves Form of the Dragon. A card whose sole purpose seems to be to donate away, Form of the Dragon can actually win us many games. This card, when coupled with Phyrexian Unlife, can make us nearly unkillable. I'm sure you're asking how, so this is the breakdown. At the end of each turn, our health resets to 5. This means our opponents have to do 5 damage, plus the additional whatever amount you use for poison damage in order to kill us. If they fail to do so, that means at the start of the next turn they have to do an additional 5 damage before doing any more poison damage to us. It gives us a really healthy buffer. And I know this doesn't seem like much, but with all of our propaganda effects, humilities, light minefields, and other combat detrimental effects, it can be very difficult to kill us with anything short of an X burn spell. Now that we've talked about win cons, let's look at what I consider a few of the staples for these kind of decks. First on the list is Paradox Haze. This gives us multiple upkeeps, which allows us to in turn draw lots of cards and gain lots of life. Next up is Wild Research. This is the repeatable instant speed tutor for the deck. It can find you what you need for the low cost of sometimes dumping what you just searched for. Wild Research can also act as a pseudo-entomb late game if you have no cards in hand but want to dump a relevant enchantment to return with Hannah, Starfield of Nyx, or sometimes Replenish. Speaking of Replenish, this card does so much work for this deck. It's great because chances are you're going to face a lot of enchantment hate, specifically Aura Shards. This allows us to shrug off any kind of early removal and bring back all of our enchantments later in the game to be really backbreaking against our opponents. Lastly, I want to recommend Enduring Ideal. This is one of the cards from the deck that I based my deck off of, and it's really strong in our deck. It allows us to tutor for any enchantment in our deck at the cost of not being able to cast anything for the rest of the game. I know this seems like a hard trade-off, but it can do really good work when you copy it with Reverberate or Twin Cast, or if you have multiple upkeeps with Paradox Haze. So just a bit of an afterword. I've seen lots of decks run stuff like Illusions of Grandeur, Steel Golem, Pyromancer's Swath, and Celestial Dawn. These are cute effects, but chances are once an opponent has seen this happen once, they're not going to let you do it again. 9 out of 10 times, once people have seen these cards, they're going to be waiting for them. And what's going to happen? You're going to be stuck with them because they're going to kill Zedruu. That's not great. I would rather run universal hate cards, like Taupe Orb, ones that I can give away that don't really affect me too badly if they get stuck on the board and I'm stuck controlling them. Well, that's my deck tech, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And be sure to check out the 2 deck links in the About section below.